The land of Oquail stretched wide like a red cloth spread under the sun. The earth carried a deep rust color, staining the soles of every villager who walked it. When the morning light touched the ground, the compounds glowed as if carved from fire itself. Ancient Irako trees stood tall at the village edges, their dark trunks rising like guardians. The elders often said, "These trees remember every secret, even the ones whispered only in the heart." And truly, anyone who listened closely could hear the soft groans of old stories trapped inside their bark. As dawn broke, the village woke with a familiar rhythm. Women gathered in small circles, pounding yam in wooden mortars that echoed like distant drums. Children carried water pots balanced on their heads, singing playful songs that mixed with the morning air. A few steps away, elders sat under the shade of the Irako tree, arguing over proverbs. "Age brings wisdom," one would say. "Not if foolishness sits in the mind," another would respond. Their voices rolled like thunder, small storms that came and went before midday. In Oquail, every household lived under the watchful eyes of the ancestors. People walked carefully, as if each step left a mark on unseen spirits. Respect was not just a rule, it was the very air they breathed. Reputation was carried like a pot of hot soup on one's head, held steady, protected from spilling. No one wanted to be the name spoken with a frown by the elders or the ancestors. Still, Oquail had a way of spreading whispers faster than the harmattan wind. A single word, tossed carelessly in the morning, could become a wildfire by sunset. Children would run past with wide eyes, saying, "Did you hear?" And the adults, pretending not to care, would tilt their ears just a little. In this village, truth and lies danced so close together that even wise people struggled to separate them. And in Oquail, fire was more than flame. To the people, it was a spirit, one that could bless or destroy, depending on the heart guiding it. Tales passed down from grandmothers warned that fire could warm a home, guard a family, and drive out evil spirits. But they also whispered that fire could punish, could expose hidden darkness, could swallow a person's life in one careless moment. "Fire listens to the soul," Mama Obi used to say. "If your heart is clean, it protects you. If not, it shows the world who you truly are." Among these people lived Amina, a woman whose softness did not hide her strength. Her belly carried new life, and because of that, the villagers greeted her with warm smiles and gentle words. She was known for her calm spirit, her respect for tradition, and the way she always bowed her head when speaking to elders. Children followed her like chicks trailing a mother hen, and the older women would say, "Ah, Amina's heart is like cool water, it gives life." But not every heart in Oquail shared such purity. Sephew, her husband, walked with a proud chest but a troubled mind. Ambition tugged at him like an impatient child. He wanted to be seen, respected, and praised. Yet every time he reached for greatness, insecurity pulled him back. He struggled between doing what was right and chasing the things that whispered to his ego. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, he wondered if the ancestors had turned their backs on him, or if he had turned his back on them first. Close to him moved Zahara, a woman whose beauty struck like lightning. Her smile was sweet, her laugh soft, but her mind was sharp as a thorn. She watched Amina with narrowed eyes, her heart burning with envy. To Zahara, Amina stood in the way of everything she wanted: attention, status, and the chance to rule Sephew's home the way a queen rules her palace. Behind her pretty face hid a spirit that desired more than it deserved. Then there was Mama Obi, the village's spiritual elder. Her presence alone could silence a restless crowd. She spoke rarely, and when she did, her words came wrapped in riddles that later unfolded into truth. People approached her with both respect and fear, for they knew she saw beyond flesh, into spirit, into destiny, into the roots of hidden things. "The road you walk," she often murmured, "is watched by more eyes than you can count." The people of Oquail formed the living drumbeat of the village. They watched, they talked, they judged, and they cared, sometimes all in the same breath. Their voices rose together when danger came. Their hands joined when someone needed help. And when betrayal or trouble stirred, the entire village felt it, as if the land itself trembled. Little did they know that soon, every whisper, every suspicion, every gaze would turn toward Amina, Sephew, and Zahara, three hearts tied together by fate, secrets, and fire. The troubles in Sephew's heart began like a slow-moving shadow at sunset, easy to ignore at first, yet impossible to escape once it stretched long over the land. Each passing day, He felt the weight of fatherhood pressing on his chest like a stone. The villagers' voices echoed in his ears wherever he went. A real man protects his home. A child is the doorway to legacy. But instead of pride, Sephew felt fear rising in him like hot steam. He often sat outside his compound, staring at the horizon, wondering how his life had reached a place where duty felt like a trap. "What if I fail?" he whispered into the warm air. No one heard him, except the doubts inside him. That was when Zahara stepped deeper into the cracks of his spirit. With a smile sweeter than palm wine and eyes that burned with dangerous light, she offered him the one thing he craved more than praise: freedom. "Sephew," she would say, brushing her fingers lightly against his arm, "why tie your spirit to a life that was chosen for you? Tradition is for people without courage. But you deserve more." Her words slid into his heart like warm oil, loosening every knot of responsibility. "More," Sephew repeated to himself, tasting the idea like ripe fruit. With her, he felt alive, unbound, like the world owed him something. She fed his ego with stories of men who broke rules and rose above their origins. Those stories twisted into his thoughts until he began to believe them. While temptation grew stronger, Amina began to feel the shift like a woman who senses rain long before it falls. She watched Sephew leave home earlier, return later, and speak less. His once warm eyes now passed over her slowly, as if searching for something he no longer recognized. She said nothing. Instead, she placed her hands gently on her belly each night and prayed, "Ancestors, guide him back. Don't let this home break." One afternoon, Mama Obi stopped by and studied Amina quietly. Her old eyes clouded with worry. "Child," she murmured, "there is a wind blowing toward your house, a dark one. Walk with caution." Amina's heart tightened, but she forced a smile. "Mama, Sephew is only stressed. Fatherhood is heavy." Mama Obi sighed deeply. "It is not fatherhood I see. It is something else. Something hungry." Whispers in the village grew sharp like thorns. People noticed Sephew's absences, the way he brushed past Amina without a word, the way Zahara smiled a little too boldly his way. Truth and rumor danced together as they always did, carried from ear to ear faster than the harmattan wind. As the tension grew, it seemed the spirits themselves were watching the unfolding drama. Amina walked with the grace of tradition, steady, loyal, anchored. Zahara moved with a wildfire's charm, bright, tempting, destructive. And between them stood Sephew, a weak man whose spirit was pulled like rope in two different directions, each tug threatening to tear him apart. The decline inside him deepened. His once steady gaze no longer settled on Amina or the home they were building. When she brought him warm food, he barely looked up. "Just leave it," he muttered. She pressed her lips together, swallowing her pain. Nights no longer found him in their hut. He wandered into the shadows of the village, choosing the sweetness of Zahara's voice over the comfort of his wife's presence. Zahara praised his looks, his strength, his potential, and each praise pulled him farther from the ancestral values that once guided him. "You are meant for greatness, Sephew," she whispered one night, her face close. "Not a simple life tied to duty." His heart drank her words like poisoned honey. Still, a war raged inside him. When he lay awake at night, guilt crawled through his chest like ants disturbed from their hill. He thought of his unborn child, of Amina's quiet smile, of the elders' teachings. But then Zahara's laughter echoed in his head, sweet and wild, washing the guilt away. Amina felt the distance growing like a cold wind creeping beneath her doorway. Though her belly grew heavier, Sephew's love grew lighter. She cried only in silence, whispering, "May the ancestors touch his heart. May he remember the vows he made under the moon." But even as she prayed, the storm gathered strength. And the whispers in Oquail began to turn into warnings, soft but sharp, signs that the road ahead would soon split into light and fire. And Sephew was walking toward the flame without even knowing it. The whispers started softly at first, curling through Oquail like thin threads of harmattan dust. Women bending over their cooking pots paused mid-stir as they watched Sephew walk past without greeting anyone. Men sitting under the old Irako tree exchanged long looks. Even children, who usually paid no mind to adult problems, felt something heavy in the air. "Aha! Why does Sephew no longer walk home with Amina?" someone would ask. "Why does he return late, smelling of strange perfumes," another replied. The rumors rolled from compound to compound until they wrapped the whole village in quiet suspicion. Zahara did nothing to slow these whispers. In fact, she fed them. She walked boldly through the village paths, hips swaying, wrappers bright and loud like she owned the land. Elders lifted their eyebrows, expecting her to lower her gaze in respect. But Zahara met their eyes with the confidence of someone who feared neither shame nor consequences. "This girl has no home training," one old woman muttered. Yet Zahara only smiled, enjoying the attention that should have weighed on her like stones. Amina heard the whispers too, but she held her pain tightly, the way a mother holds her child during a storm. She touched her round belly often, whispering, "My little one, you must not feel my sorrow." She forced herself to move gently through each day, preparing meals, sweeping the compound, smiling politely, though her heart was heavy. She knew stress could harm her child, so she folded her tears inside and locked them away. Still, the village stared at her more than they stared at the true culprits. Instead of blaming Sefyu or Zahara, they questioned why Amina's voice was so quiet. Why doesn't she challenge her husband? Why does she allow disrespect? Maybe she is too weak. Their judgment, unfair and sharp, landed on the woman still trying to save her marriage. Such is how society sometimes turns its back on the innocent while excusing the guilty. Only Mama Obi watched differently. Sitting before her small fire at night, she traced the smoke with her eyes. She murmured. "These whispers, they are not simple gossip. They are smoke before a great fire." The elder felt a shift in the wind, a spiritual warning that something dark was crawling toward Amina's home. She sighed deeply, knowing that some storms could not be stopped, only survived. While the rumors grew, Zahara's grip on Sefyu tightened like a vine crawling up a weak tree. Late at night, when Sefyu sneaked into her hut, Zahara wrapped herself around him and whispered sweet poison into his ears. "Sefyu, can't you see? Amina is holding you down. You are meant for more. You deserve freedom." Her words dripped with honey, yet they were sharp enough to cut through his remaining sense of duty. Sefyu listened, too easily moved by flattery. Zahara painted bright pictures of a future where he was king of his own choices. No responsibilities, no crying baby, no nagging wife. "Imagine a life," she said, trailing a finger along his chest, "where you answer to no one, except me." The images tugged at Sefyu's spirit, awakening desires he never dared admit. Then one night, Zahara leaned close and whispered a challenge that froze his breath. "If you truly choose me," she said, "prove it. Show me you are not tied to that woman anymore. Do something that no man can undo." Her eyes gleamed, dangerous and daring. Sefyu's heart pounded. He knew the path she demanded was dark, yet he did not turn away. Inside him, guilt and desire began to fight. His ancestors' teachings tugged at his conscience, reminding him that a man's home is his crown. But his weakness had already grown roots. The more he fought, the deeper he sank. Nights found him staring at the moon, whispering, "What have I become?" In the spirit world, the ancestors turned their faces away. Their silence was heavy, like a drumbeat from the other side. Sefyu had stepped off the path of honor, choosing shadows over light. The winds that once carried blessings now moved coldly around him, warning of the tragedy soon to come. And though no one could see it yet, the fire, both the one in his heart and the one waiting in the darkness, had already begun to grow. The evening in Oquail carried an unusual softness, the kind that made the air feel sweet yet strangely heavy. Sefyu walked beside Amina with a smile stretched across his face, but the smile did not reach his eyes. It felt forced, hollow, like a mask made of thin clay. When he placed his hand on her shoulder, his touch lacked warmth. Amina's heart fluttered, not with joy, but with a quiet fear she tried to ignore. "My wife," he said softly, "you look tired. Let me take care of you tonight." Amina studied his face. "You are being gentle today," she whispered, unsure whether to trust the moment. Sefyu chuckled, but the sound felt sharp. A man must cherish the woman carrying his child. His words were sweet, yet something in them tasted bitter. Still, Amina clung to the hope that perhaps the winds of their marriage were shifting back toward love. Far across the village, Mama Obi paused mid-stride, her cowrie bracelets jingling as she froze. The wind brushed past her ears with a strange hiss, as if whispering a warning only she could hear. She lifted her head toward the sky and frowned. "The air is moving the wrong way," she murmured. "Spirits do not make noise for nothing." She walked to the nearest household, tapping gently on the wooden frame. "If you see Amina, tell her to come see me," she said cryptically. "Tell her Mama Obi's bones are restless tonight." But Amina never received the message. Back in her courtyard, she watched Sephew pace back and forth. Something inside her, something older than fear, began to tremble. The ancestors whispered through her heartbeat, telling her danger sat in the same shadows as her husband. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Sephew turned quickly, forcing calm. "Of course. Tonight is for peace." Amina nodded, though her spirit twisted uneasily. She laid her palm on her stomach, whispering, "My child, hold on. Your father is lost, but maybe he can still find his way back." Night settled across Oquail like a dark cloth. The village huts glowed with quiet charcoal fires. Crickets sang their gentle songs. Children slept with dusty foreheads pressed against pillows filled with raffia. All seemed peaceful, yet above the rooftops, fate moved like a hunter sharpening his blade. No one knew that betrayal was stretching its claws. Sephew opened the door of their hut, turning to Amina with a strange softness in his voice. "Come inside," he said. I have something for you. A gift." Amina blinked. "A gift? At this hour?" He nodded. "You deserve it." Though doubt twined around her heart, she stepped inside. Before she could turn around, the door slammed shut. The sound echoed like a drum of doom. She rushed toward it, but the wooden frame trembled as something heavy slid into place outside. "Sephew," her voice cracked. "Why did you close the door?" No answer came, only the shuffling of his feet retreating. Amina pounded the door. "Sephew, open it. This is not funny." But laughter did not greet her. Only silence. Outside, Zahara stepped into the moonlight, her beauty twisted with a cold, greedy hunger. In her hand, she held a burning torch. The flames danced wildly, lighting her face with a glow that was both beautiful and terrifying. "So this is it," she whispered to Sephew. "Tonight, your life becomes your own." Sephew's throat bobbed. "Will this really free us?" Zahara smirked. "There is no freedom without sacrifice." She pressed the torch into his trembling hands. His fingers curled around the wooden handle, and in that moment the fire reflected his final choice. Together they moved toward the straw walls of the hut. Zahara leaned closer, whispering, "Do it. Prove you choose me." Sephew closed his eyes, then thrust the flame forward. The dry grass caught instantly. A hungry crackle filled the night as the flames climbed higher, reaching for the sky like angry spirits taking form. Amina screamed from inside, her voice shaking the air. "Sephew, please. I am still here. I am carrying your child." But the fire swallowed her cries. Zahara's smile grew, but Sephew's face twisted with something darker, a realization too late to undo. The flames roared louder, brighter, fueled not by dry straw alone but by betrayal deep enough to scorch the soul. As the fire rose, it did more than burn wood. It consumed the last pieces of the man Sephew used to be. The ancestors, watching from the unseen places, turned their faces away. Amina's eyes fluttered open to a thick, acrid smoke curling beneath the door. Her heart jumped. Something was wrong. The familiar creak of the wooden beams seemed different tonight, ominous, as if the very house whispered warnings she could not yet understand. She coughed, pressing a hand to her stomach, feeling the tiny life within her, fragile and precious. Her breath trembled. The scent of danger filled the room before her mind could even grasp it. She ran to the first door. Locked. The next one, blocked by falling timbers. The small windows were barred. The heat from the fire outside licked at her skin. Panic clawed at her chest as the house transformed into a prison. Each wall felt heavier, each shadow a silent threat. Her mother's teachings echoed in her mind. When fire comes, it tests more than your strength, it tests the heart. Tears stung her eyes as she pressed her hands over her womb. Fear roared hotter than the flames that crept across the floor. "Please, ancestors, protect us," she whispered, her voice breaking. The flames danced hungrily, devouring straw mats, wooden beams, and every token of her peaceful life. She could feel the fire's intent, not just to burn wood, but to consume her very hope. A sudden calm enveloped her amidst the chaos. She closed her eyes, remembering Mama Obi's words, "Strength is born from the spirits who guard the innocent. Let their courage flow through your veins." Drawing a deep breath, Amina felt an ancestral fire ignite within her, an unyielding courage to protect her child. Every step forward was deliberate, guided by something older than fear. The heat burned her skin, but it could not touch her spirit. She lifted herself, murmuring prayers, her heart beating with the rhythm of generations who had survived against impossible odds. Far across Oquail, Mama Obi sat by her fire, sensing a tremor in the night winds. Her eyes narrowed, seeing shadows that did not belong. "The spirits cry tonight," she muttered, her voice a low chant. "The darkness comes on silent feet. Warn them, warn her." She rose, torch in hand, moving swiftly toward the village, whispering cryptic warnings as the elders stirred awake, hearts pounding with unease. The villagers felt it too, a pull in their chests, an ancestral command that summoned them as one. Doors creaked open, sandals struck the red earth paths. They ran through the night, voices calling to one another, driven not by curiosity but by duty. Mothers clutched children close, men grabbed buckets and mats, but their eyes were fixed on the smoke rising like a black serpent from Amina's home. One heartbeat guided many, as if the village itself had become a single, living protector. When they arrived, their collective courage formed a living wall against the raging fire. Each hand offered water, blankets, and hope. In that moment, the community was not just witness, it was shield against darkness, against betrayal, against a heart that had turned from honor. Flames still licked the roof, but the strength of Oquail, of ancestors, of every moral eye watching from both worlds, pressed forward like an unbroken tide. They would not let her fall. Amina's body was trembling as strong hands lifted her from the charred remains of her home. Smoke clung to her hair, and her clothes were singed, but the life within her, her child, remained protected. She collapsed into the arms of the villagers, pressing her hands over her womb as though to shield it from the world. Her eyes, wide and wet, scanned the darkness, still haunted by the inferno she had escaped. "Hold her steady!" one villager shouted, his voice cutting through the haze. "She carries the life of our village yet inside her." As they carried her toward safety, someone's sharp gaze caught movement near the shadow of the dying flames. Sephu and Zahara crouched, faces pale in the firelight, watching with hearts that had betrayed the life they should have protected. The villagers froze, realization dawning like the first light of dawn. There, by the old Iroko," whispered an elder. "See their eyes. They are the snakes that started this fire." Amina, barely able to speak, murmured through cracked lips, fragments of what had happened. "Sephu, he led me." Zahara, "The fire, it was not an accident." Her words hung in the smoke-heavy night, heavy with betrayal. Mothers gasped, children clung to their fathers, and even the wind seemed to pause to listen. A roar of anger swept through the gathered villagers. "No, this cannot be hidden," shouted one man, slamming his fist against a fallen beam. The collective outrage was palpable, spreading like wildfire across Oquail. Those who had whispered doubts now shouted accusations, voices harmonizing in righteous fury. Zahara bolted, attempting to flee into the shadows, but guilt and fear slowed her steps. Hands grabbed her before she could vanish, pulling her back to face the very hearts she had tried to deceive. Sephu stood frozen, as if the weight of the world had landed upon him. His pride, once towering, collapsed beneath the enormity of his sin. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged, only the tremble of a man confronted by the justice he had long evaded. Mama Obi raised her staff, her eyes glinting like firelight on obsidian. "Dawn shall witness your reckoning," she proclaimed. "The council will meet under the eyes of ancestors, and the truth of fire and betrayal shall not be denied." The villagers nodded, forming a solemn circle around the pair. Justice, as old as the land itself, was coming. The night held its breath as Oquail prepared to confront the darkness that had dared to defile its moral heart. Sephu and Zahara stood before the elders, trembling like saplings caught in a sudden wind. Around them, the villagers formed a tight circle, their whispers carrying the weight of generations. Each pair of eyes seemed to pierce through the skin, looking straight into hearts that had strayed. Mama Obi's hut glowed softly behind them, where Amina lay, her body wrapped in warm cloths, her unborn child protected by the silent prayers of her neighbors. She breathed slowly, gathering strength, while the gentle hum of women singing old songs of protection floated through the air. The head elder rose, staff in hand, voice deep and resonant as thunder rolling across the plains. "Betrayal of kin," he declared, "is betrayal of the soil that bore you. The land remembers, and the ancestors will not forgive lightly." One by one, villagers stepped forward. A farmer spoke of Sefiu's coldness, the way he abandoned his home at night. A mother described the fear that had gripped her children when whispers spread through the market. The words piled upon one another like stones in a river, forming a dam of truth that could not be broken. "Do not hide behind charms or honeyed words," an elder added, pointing at Sefiu. "Every deed will be weighed." Evidence stacked like stones of judgment, torn cloth from the night of fire, charred remnants of the home, whispered confessions caught by attentive ears. Each proof was another brick in the wall of his guilt. Zahara, desperate, pointed a trembling finger at Sefiu. "It was his idea. I followed," she cried. Sefiu's jaw tightened, his own voice cracking. "No. She tempted me. She led me astray." Their false bond shattered like dried palm leaves. Villagers gasped, some shaking their heads, others muttering in agreement. The unity they had thought unbreakable now lay in ashes at their feet. The elders looked on, stern and unwavering. "See what deceit sows," Mama Obi murmured, her eyes fixed on Sefiu. Sefiu's chest heaved, pride and fear colliding violently. Friends turned away, doors closed to him, and the home he once dreamed of owning with Amina now lay in smoke and ruin. His ambitions, his reputation, everything he sacrificed for fleeting desire, had crumbled to dust. A heavy silence fell over the circle. The ancestors had spoken, the village had judged, and the moral of the tale was clear: betrayal destroys even the strongest of hearts. Amina rose slowly, the weight of sorrow pressing upon her, yet her eyes burned with quiet fire. She faced the circle of elders, the villagers, even Sefiu and Zahara, who now seemed smaller under the gaze of truth. "I do not ask for revenge," she said, her voice steady, echoing like a bell across the dusty courtyard. "I ask only that justice be done. Let the ancestors guide your hearts, not the heat of anger." A hush fell over Oquail. Whispers ceased, and even the wind seemed to pause to hear her. The elders exchanged solemn glances, recognizing the strength of a spirit unbroken by fire, betrayal, and fear. "Judge with wisdom, not wrath," she continued, holding her swollen belly protectively. "For a heart led by vengeance only destroys what it touches. Let clarity, not fury, govern this day." The villagers shifted, murmurs of admiration rising. Women whispered her name in reverent tones, while men nodded, ashamed for ever doubting her. Amina's dignity, like a shield forged in the flames of her suffering, had restored her honor and reshaped the balance of the village. The elders stood, voices carrying like thunder across the red earth square. "Zahara, your place is no longer among us. Leave Oquail and take with you only the shame of your choices." Zahara trembled, but she could not argue. Each step she took away from the village echoed with the ancestors' disapproval. Turning to Sefiu, the head elder's eyes burned. "You shall rebuild what you destroyed, brick by brick. Every wall, every threshold, every hearth, until the house stands again as it should. And you will serve this village, to restore what your betrayal has taken from its heart." Sefiu's face drained of color. His hands shook, and for the first time, he felt the weight of the lives he had harmed. The fire that had once promised freedom now became his chains, and the ruins of Amina's home rose in memory as a lesson etched into every heart. The elders raised their voices together. "Let this fire, though it burned, remain a warning. Let every child know that loyalty, love, and family are the pillars upon which we stand. Betrayal destroys the betrayer first." Amina rested her hand on her stomach, feeling the steady life within. She smiled faintly, a mother's joy mingling with the wisdom earned in suffering. Around her, the village exhaled as one, the moral clear, the balance restored, and the protection of the ancestors felt in every corner of Oquail. The first cries of life pierced the warm dawn air, soft yet unwavering. Amina, exhausted but radiant, held her newborn close, feeling the tiny heartbeat press against her chest. "Imani," she whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude and hope. Faith. Our faith has survived. The villagers gathered outside Mama Obi's compound, their eyes wide with joy and relief. The women smiled softly, and even the men lowered their heads in silent reverence. Word traveled quickly, carried by the same wind that once spread rumors of sorrow, now announcing a life born from endurance and courage. Young girls peeked through the doorway, their eyes reflecting awe and longing. Amina looked at them and spoke gently, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing tall when the world tries to break you. You, too, can rise with honor." Her words settled like warm sunlight on the Red Earth village, planting seeds of strength in hearts yet untested. Mothers nodded, passing on the lesson quietly, while elders murmured their approval, feeling the balance of Oquale slowly mending. Mama Obi stepped forward, staff in hand, her voice deep and resonant, echoing like the beating of ancestral drums. "Listen well, children of this land. Fire destroys, but it also uncovers truth. Betrayal burns the betrayer first. Let this day remind you that hearts guided by loyalty and honor withstand the fiercest flames." Amina looked at her child, feeling the gentle life beneath her fingers. Around her, Oquale exhaled, the village breathing in harmony once more. Smoke no longer rose from destruction but from the cooking fires of families reunited, of justice served, of morality restored. The elders nodded to one another, eyes turned toward the sky where ancestral spirits watched over their people. The sun rose higher, casting golden light over the red earth, and the village moved forward, guarded by lessons etched in fire, faith, and unwavering courage. And so, life returned to Oquale, steadier, wiser, and braver, the story of betrayal, survival, and justice now woven into the heartbeat of every child, woman, and man who called the village home.